Welcome to Missing the Mark, where we look for meaning in strange places. I'm Christopher. This is just a quick update, since it's probably going to take me at least a few more days to get out another video. I've got two main ones I'm working on at the moment. The first is taking a look at a hilarious recruiting video from the Richard Dawkins Foundation for Reason and Science. I don't want to spoil it, so let's just say it reminded me of a Scientology recruiting video, but less friendly and competently done. At the same time, I'm also working on a video about the Dunning-Kruger effect. I mean the actual Dunning-Kruger effect, which is not just a fancy way of saying, you're not as smart as you think you are. I've read the paper which Dunning and Kruger published, which I think will be interesting to talk about, as well as the limits to it, some of which Dunning and Kruger mention in the paper itself. And I haven't forgotten the overview of the world's religions I'm working on either, but I've had a few ideas for how to rework the one on paganism, which should make it a bit clearer, so I want to take some time to do that. Oh, and there's a fascinating blog post of Eve's on the history of falsificationism, that is, the theory proposed by Sir Karl Popper, which I really want to share with you guys, which I'm also hoping I'll be able to get to soon. So, if things go well, I might be able to post 2 videos next week. But a quick thing that I ran into today, which should only take a moment to talk about, is an interesting blog post by Scott Adams. I'll link it in the description, but basically it notes that people are often irrational, which only irrational fools ever doubted, and then links to an NPR article describing the work of a scientist who points out that if evolution is the basis of thought, it's very unlikely that our cognition would be oriented towards truth, since it would be more efficient for us to suffer from advantageous delusions. Basically, some atheists have finally discovered, on their own, and without realizing that they have, C.S. Lewis's argument that materialism cuts its own throat. In the 1940s, Lewis pointed out that if materialism is true, then all thoughts are the result of irrational forces, which we have no reason to suppose are directed towards truth. So if we accepted materialism, we must immediately reject our reasons for accepting it. This doesn't prove that materialism is false, of course, only that it is impossible to know that it is true. This may not be very important to people who have concluded that no one knows anything anyway, but I think it worth noting that the conclusion of the scientist in the article Scott Adams linked to leads to a very interesting fork, which he certainly didn't talk about. If God exists, then any reasons we have for believing that he doesn't are an illusion. If God does not exist, and we are the products of evolution, it is likely that any beliefs we have about reality are illusions whose only purpose was to maximize the number of descendants our ancestors had. One of the problems of talking about evolution is that it must always be retrospective, since something can be wildly successful for a while, then suddenly become a colossal failure. Evolution is fundamentally about success, and success can only be judged in retrospect. Anyway, whichever tine of this fork you take, you wind up at the conclusion that any reason you have to believe that God doesn't exist is very likely to be an illusion. On the other hand, if God does exist, then reasons to believe in him are very likely to be good reasons to believe in him. While if God doesn't exist, reasons to believe in him are no worse than the reasons you have for believing in anything else, since you live in a world of illusion. It doesn't prove anything about whether God exists, but it, once again, proves that the only chance you have for being rational is if God does exist. It also goes to show that there's nothing new under the sun. I'm sure there are Greeks who thought of this argument before C.S. Lewis did. They thought of pretty much everything, except for Christianity. Until next time, may you hit everything you aim at. Welcome to Missing the Mark, where we look for meaning in strange places. I'm Christopher. This is just a quick update, since it's probably going to take me at least a few more days to get out another video. I've got 2 main ones I'm working on at the moment. The first is taking a look at a hilarious recruiting video from the Richard Dawkins Foundation for Reason and Science. I don't want to spoil it, so